In my opinion, most guys really build their motors and want to go fast all the time. The brakes are always overlooked. If you're going to go fast, you want to be able to stop fast. And this is the easiest way to get there. What's up, everybody? Steve here with Speed Kings. Today we are going over and installing these beautiful Lyndall Crown Cut rotors on this badass Sportster right behind me here. We're pretty stoked to work with Lyndall on this project. A lot of you guys have seen these things. We've actually done a walkthrough with Lyndall themselves. These things are pretty much next level shit right here. Their rotors come with different carriers to match their sprockets, to match their wheels, to match whatever aesthetics you want to match on your bike. They not only have these crown cut style, they have radial cut, they have different composites they use for their rotors and different composites they use for their braking systems. The rotor finish itself comes in various colorways. I've seen blue, black, silver, gold. Pretty much you name it, they can do it for you. These ones are 11.5 for the Sportster right here, but they go all the way up to a 13, and I'm sure they might be able to make even some custom larger sizes. So one of the cool things about these rotors is that it's actually a floating rotor. Even though it's not your traditional floating rotor where you see the rivets here holding the rotor to the carrier, it's actually on the backside here with this locking ring system. So what you do is you just kind of pop this bad boy out right here. Whoop, and this all just comes apart. With these nice rotor pads right here, keeps everything secured and with limited movement. They're really nice system. In the future, if you wanted to change just the outer ring, say you did a different color scheme on your bike and the gold's not going for you anymore, you don't have to buy a new carrier, you can just buy the outer. We will also be adding on their Z+ brake pads. So what these are supposed to do are supposed to help to where we keep this gold finish on these during braking and to help brake a lot harder. So we're pretty stoked to put this on this bike and see the difference that it's gonna make. If you've watched our visits video, you know that Lyndall came to the market making performance products for motorcycles. In my opinion, most guys really build their motors and wanna go fast all the time. The brakes are always overlooked. If you're gonna go fast, you wanna be able to stop fast. And this is the easiest way to get there. We're gonna go ahead and install these Lyndall rotors and pads now. So first things first, we're gonna jack this rear wheel up in the air, pull the rear wheel off, and switch our pads and our rotor. So now we're just gonna go ahead and remove this rotor. So we're gonna go ahead and loosen these bolts on our original rotor. Loosen them up and then we're gonna hit them with the impact. Boom. Just throwing a little dot of Loctite on these new Lyndall gold bolts to match up our system here. Then we're gonna torque them down to spec. The torque spec for the rear is gonna be 30 to 45 foot-pounds. So we're gonna go ahead and just kind of snug these down in a star pattern. So we're gonna go ahead and change our pads out with our new Lyndall pads prior to putting our rotor back on the bike. So we're gonna go ahead and break this pin loose here. Boom. So now we get the new pads in place. We'll just go ahead and put the pin back through them. And then we'll replace our little cap cover. All right, so we got our new pads in place, so now we'll go ahead and put our wheel and everything back on. Now we're just gonna put our axle back through, put our axle nut back on, and we'll move up to the front side. We're gonna go ahead and just break the axle loose on the front now. We'll get this front wheel pulled off. We'll go ahead and pop this axle through. So we've kind of got our bolts barely down to where they're bottoming out. So now we're gonna go ahead and torque them down. This Sportster, the front's gonna be 16 to 24 foot-pounds. Please make sure you check your service manual to find out what your bike requires. So now we're gonna go ahead and change the brake pads on our front caliper. Since we had to remove it to pull the wheel off, we're gonna go ahead and just remount it right now, change the brake pads out of it, and then pull it back off. Just a little easier to get everything on there with it mounted up instead of just having it hanging or holding it in your hand. So it's very similar to the rear. We're gonna go ahead and pop this cap out, pull the pin, pull the brake pads out, and throw our new brake pads in. So we got our brake pads in position. We'll just go ahead and tighten this pin. Every caliper is a little bit different, so see your service manual for how your brake pads get installed. All right, so now we got the brake pads in. We're gonna go ahead and remove this caliper again. That way we have the room we need to get the wheel back on. Go ahead and get everything put back into place with our spacers and our axle. Throw our washer back on. Get our nut on. Throw a little dab of blue Loctite on these caliper bolts just to keep them locked into place. And now we'll go ahead and put our caliper back on. Last but not least, we'll add our cap back in right here. And what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna lower the lift down and lock the wheel back in its wheel chock. Now we'll go ahead and tighten the axle and throw the pinch bolt back through. She's ready to rip. We just finished up installing these Lyndall brake pads and rotors on this 2009 Sportster. Really stoked to have this performance upgrade in our braking system on this bike. With the crown cut on these rotors and these machine gas slots right here, these brakes are gonna run a lot cooler than the previous rotors. So we're really stoked to try these out and see how these Z Plus pads really improve the braking on this bike. If you're looking to get your bike set up with this performance rotor and pad upgrade, contact us at info@speed-kingcycle.com and we'll get you set up.